Before we begin, if you enjoy these videos, please like, share, subscribe, comment, and consider donating. Thank you. There is typically a new video at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every day. Herric continued to speak, and Ash started to listen. What he spoke of was not pleasant to hear, yet he spoke nonetheless. Ash, I find it necessary to tell you of your mistakes. Ash nodded with a slight sigh. I'm aware that I have made a couple mistakes. You're not, Herric said, even more seriously than he had spoken just moments prior. You don't know what it cost us. Ash held back a gulp and said to Herric, what did it cost us? The man you killed, the captain, Herric reminded Ash of briefly, before returning to his lecturing. His name was George Ruxon. And? Ash asked, anticipating the worst. And he was a captain in the Royal Army. Ash stared at him blankly, waiting for him to continue, a dour look on his face. The King's Army, Herric said, emphasizing the importance of his statement boisterously. The army of the king. Does he know of this place? Ash tried to sound concerned. Of the center, Herric said. No, fortunately not. Fortunately not, Harkin repeated him, attempting to reiterate the emphasis that Herric had already made poignantly clear. You must exercise caution, young Ash, Herric again continued, for you do not want to wind up dead or crippled as I am. And furthermore, Herric said more loudly, you will never put the guild in that kind of danger under that kind of suspicion ever again. It is not as if the king knows of our presence within his kingdom, Harkin clarified. That much you know, but perhaps it needs to be reiterated. Ash nodded, a sense of the weight of the severity of his mistakes now ever heavy upon him. Do you understand, young Ash? Herric asked. Ash nodded without a blink. I do, master, he said, that is what normally one called one's superior, within the guild and without it. Herric sighed. He had a gaunt face, laid out as if stretched and saddened and weary today. His hair matted against his temples. He had been training, that much was clear. What was not clear was exactly what he now planned to do with poor Ash, who yet knew that he must endure a punishment. With a long sigh, Herric nodded to himself and told Ash what it was he would now do. You will receive the 7 lashes, he said. And on the 7th you will swear your oath to this order as we all do and must. That is your punishment as well as your initiation. Ash gulped. He had never endured a lash, and though his father had beat him, he was somewhat fickle to pain, unfortunately, but nonetheless replied, Yes, master, as you wish. As he knew that to deny Herric's wishes was certain to disperse pain or punishment further than he wanted to test the man. Besides, it had been apparent to Ash what he had gotten himself into, this guild of cloaked men, on the day that he had arrived. Of course, he was ready to swear his oath to it, even eager. As Herric instructed him to do so, Ash removed his shirt, a green shirt that tied at its collar, and turned around, exposing his back. He was expected to stand and would be given nothing to hold on to. Herric, removing the whip from beneath his cloak, let it fall low to the ground. And in but a moment he struck Ash hard as he could, which caused Ash to yell loudly. The second was worse, the third unbearable, yet Ash waited until finally The seventh blow had struck, and Herric had returned his whip to a small holster, which he kept beneath his cloak. "Damn you," Ash whispered, though fortunately neither Harkin nor Herric heard him. "Damn you." "We will now proceed to the court," Herric demanded. Ash gave Harkin a look of surprise. He did not know that the guild held a court, but placed his shirt back on, to which Harkin motioned that he should not. And so he removed it again and followed. "Follow me," Harkin said with a small nod. Ash did as he was told, but did not hide his dismay, and followed Harkin down a few corridors and into a grand hall, the likes of which he had never seen before, Herric stalking behind him the entire way there. As he entered, he noted some of the men who sat in their pews, as there were pews, and many of them which stood before a grand table, a small yet powerful gavel resting atop a small striking base which was surrounded by short lit candles. These men, some of them were men he had trained with, some of them jealous men, some of them respectful, but none of them happy to be here now, save a few, as they knew that they would have to vote. Something that Ash was yet ignorant of, that they would have to vote him in or out, lest he could cast out without an eighth lash, forever marking him as rejected by the guild of cloaked men, to those who knew of it. Ash figured it out pretty quickly, as Herric was ushered in by a man who looked perhaps holier than God himself, as was customary of clergymen, to appear so sacred with their garments. The name of this religion was, of course, Lornu, a very common religion in Lorne, as it was developed within the city many centuries ago, eons ago, should you ask a clergyman or many a commoner. Either way, it was apparent to Ash then what was happening, that he was under tribunal, that he would either be chosen or not, though given how much time they'd spent into training and developing Ash's skills, he supposed they would select for him. But before he could relieve himself with such comfort, he was struck with the realization that his mistake with Dalum and the Captain Ruxin wasn't merely a bad doing, but rather a sign of absolute disrespect and a lack of skill, as the look on the clergyman's face and all of the rest of the cloaked men therein was and were that and those of anguish, pity, and rage. Ash took in a deep breath and whispered to himself something inaudible to everyone else, but to which his ear was none the less privy. "God help me," he said. Harkin blew out the candles on the table and waited.